Alright, well, we're finally here. We're going to start World War One. We have spent the last couple weeks, heck, I shouldn't say weeks, the last month and a half or so, just talking about the causes of World War One. So, in those causes again, imperialism, militarism, nationalism, entangling alliances. So, and we just finished up with our entangling alliance simulation, in class at least. Well, anyways. Now we're getting into it. Now, as it says up there, Serbian nationalism, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand knows I'm already using the term nationalism, but I'm hoping everybody here knows about the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. You know that is considered the thing that started this whole war in the first place. Well, there's definitely more that goes into that, and it's like, well, then you get to the question, why did killing one guy start in a huge war? Well, again, it gets down to imperialism, militarism, national entangling alliances. I'll explain more as we go throughout this. But then you also get to this idea of like, well, couldn't they just have avoided this? Well, it comes down to that most of them were actually wanting this to happen. Everybody was just waiting for something to happen to just get things started off, to just start this war. Remember, we talked about entangling alliances, that it was being said that, oh, we have all these alliances, we're going to be safe for forever. No one's going to pull on that thread to just ruin everything. And of course, well, this is what pulled on the thread. But it didn't also mean that weren't countries were just like, we need this to happen, we need this to happen, we need this to happen. Basically they deserve this. France is thinking, Germany deserves a beat down. Britain's thinking Germany deserves a beat down. Germany's thinking, man, everybody deserves a beat down because they've treated us so poorly in the past. There's a question I like to ask in class, and that simply is just, do you get along with your brothers and sisters? This is going to be, I hope I can bring a little bit of personal understanding in here, but do you like your brothers and sisters? I hope everybody here does, but I know if I'm going to ask that question, there's going to be quite a few hands that go up and just say, nope, don't get along with my brothers and sisters. In fact, there's a lot of animosity there. And then my next question I usually ask at that point is just to say, hey, is this because of one thing, or is it a buildup of things over time? And most always it's the buildup of things. Like you have maybe that one thing that happened, but just every little thing just builds up. Like little things like, you gave me the smaller half of the turkey sandwich. This is such a problem in my family, by the way. I'm using that example because that's an example in my family, where my dad would always say, all right, one divides, the other decides, because it was such a big deal. It's like, you always do that. You always try to basically give this smaller piece. You do this because you hate me. Like, how many times have you been in a situation like that? Maybe you even have a friend that's not a friend any longer because of just these grievances that have built up. Anyways, if you have that situation in your life, which I know most of us have at this point, it can get bad. You understand, not get bad. Well, I hope it doesn't get bad. But you can understand what I'm talking about, hopefully a little bit at this point. Think of that type of thought process and you apply it to the European nations. Heck, you can apply it to nations today. And it's the same idea as like, well, you did this, you did this, you did this, you did this, and you're always doing this, you're always doing this, you're always doing this, you're always doing this. And it's unfair, and it's unfair, and it's unfair, and it's unfair. And you just, whether there's credibility there or not, it builds up that hatred, that anger, and that kind of idea of like, I deserve to get you. That essentially that vengeance thing comes into play. Well, anyways, I know this is like the online lesson, but I'm just going to tell one personal story that goes along with this. Won't give you the whole story. I usually give the whole story in class whenever this comes up, but I feel like it's worthwhile. So, my relationship with my brother, which is good now, although might be good because we don't live under the same roof haven't lived under the same roof for 20 years or so, but we do quite well with each other. But growing up, like middle school age, especially like when I was 13, 14 and he was 11 and 12, not good at all. Basically, he would run his mouth. He'd call me names. For some reason, whenever it got to him calling me fat, that's when I'd jack him in the face. Or at least try to. Sometimes he'd be able to run away. He was faster than me. Sometimes I'd get him. And man, there's sometimes I was just so mad it didn't matter. He'd run and go to our mom, and say, Justin's going to get me, Justin's going to get me, I'd still clock him right there. And yeah, so anyways, we'd both get in our different versions of trouble at that point. My parents did the best they could, let's put it that way. So the thing is that we moved into a new house, and one of the first things, this was actually the argument of my mom to my dad why we needed to buy or build a new house. Because he was like, we're fine where we are. But she is like, our sons will never get along if you don't buy a new house. Or essentially, if we don't move into a new house, you know, have them in separate rooms, because we were in a house where we had to be in the same room. By then, I'm the oldest of 6. So he's like, all right. My dad was like, all right. We go and we get that new house, and my brother and I are put in the basement, and we both have our each room. And yes, it did work. We started getting along a little better, mostly because we weren't in each other's faces. But it didn't mean that all this stuff, all the reasons we got in fights in the first place, physical and verbal fights in the first place, wasn't still there, because it was. And it came out hardcore over a game of actually Axis and Allies, which is, well, kind of interesting. I don't know if you can call that ironic at this point, but we're talking about the World Wars as an Axis and Allies as a World War II board game, which is epic and awesome, by the way, I must say. But I played it all the time. My brother didn't. And it just so happened I had a friend over that wanted to play, and my brother decided, hey, can I play too? And I was like, sure. It's always good having more players. You know, please play. And I was happy that he was playing. But we get to a point in the game, and I can't explain too much here. We get to a point in the game where he was planning on doing a move that was illegal. And I knew it was illegal. I knew the rules quite well. I had the rule book memorized. But he thought he could do it. Now, think about this. How many times have you ever been in a situation where someone doesn't know the rules or exactly how the way things go, and you're usually merciful towards that person? Like, yeah, okay, we'll let you get away with it this one time. You know, it's understandable you didn't get that. You know, think about this for a second. Especially when you meet someone for the first time, you're playing a game with someone for the first time, you're more forgiving in that situation. Well, here's me and my brother. We've known each other for forever. We've had those little things that just rankled under us. You know, we're all out to win, basically. And I just basically tell my brother, no, you can't do that. I'm not going to allow you to do that. And look, here in the rule book it says you can't do that. And of course he fires back at me with, you always do this. You never let me get my way. You knew I was playing this, and you were waiting to tell me no at this point instead of earlier. You know, of course, I was guffawing. Like, no, I didn't. This is the way it's supposed to be played. You got to follow the rules, blah, 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 blah. And we just start going back and forth and back and forth. And just, my brother is much more quick-witted than I am. Let's put it that way. Which is very awesome if he's on your side. Not awesome if you're the target. And he just starts going at me. And I just start getting pissed and pissed and pissed. And the idea is that both of us are feeling all those things that we did to each other growing up. And it is all coming out because we never really got to that point of being like, okay, let's move on and just forget about all of this. And so after about 40 minutes of this, by the way, my friend that is there is just like, hey guys, can we just move on? It's okay. Let's just keep playing. But after all of this, I was big. I can't say I am big because I'm not big any longer, but I was big in high school. I was a big kid. I took my brother and I tossed him about 15 feet over the couch. And then I jumped over the couch and landed on him before he had the ability to basically escape, run away. And, well, let's just say it wasn't a pretty sight. So, anyways, brothers, correct? So, anyways. It's so bad. I'm pretty sure my brother probably remembers this story so much differently than I do.